Hey everybody, Dr. Frank DiLollo. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's video was prompted by a post that I read somewhere. I think it was on social media. I'm not really sure. I can't remember where I saw it. But it was a mom who was looking for a functional medicine doctor. I guess like a doctor, an MD or a DO that is a bit more like holistic or more natural in their approach. And it was because she claimed that, I think it was for her child, I'm pretty sure it was for her child, that had ADHD or ADD, right? Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And she said that the medications, I think she named them too, which I'll name in a second, which one's what the top choice of treatment is for that, challenge, if you will. But she said that the medications weren't working anymore. We're at our wit's end, they're not working anymore, and we need to do something more natural, more holistic. I don't know what, but she seemed as though she was at her wit's end. And it just, it struck my brain here because, we see these types of things in the office. And so a lot of people are like, what do you mean? A chiropractor sees, what are you saying? You treat ADHD? I'm not saying we treat anything, but I just want to go through a couple of things with you. And then at the very end, I'm going to tell you what happens when patients like that, whether they're children or adults, come to our office and what actually happens with them, okay? So we're talking about ADD, ADHD, learning disabilities. I don't like using the word disability because I don't think it's a disability. I like to call it learning challenges, and that's speaking from personal experience because I took, early on in school, I had to go to, shall we say, remedial classes in reading and math. You get through it, you learn your way, and just because you may learn differently than other people learn, like maybe you're more visual or maybe more kinesthetic or auditory, doesn't mean that you are disabled. You might have a little bit of a learning challenge. Okay, I understand that. Okay, but all of that, I just want you to think about this for a second. All of that to me is under the umbrella, all right, of sensory integration. And again, this is another buzzword that healthcare, medicine, if you will, has come up with. But let's just talk about what that is really so that you can think of these types of disorders differently or from a different point of view, a different perspective, okay? So sensory integration means that you cannot integrate, your body cannot integrate its senses properly. Whether it's a child or an adult, it means that that individual cannot perceive themselves properly, and they cannot perceive their environment properly. And then the body goes into deregulation or dysregulation. It doesn't regulate properly. For example, the three major symptoms of ADD or ADHD or learning challenges is inattention, impulsivity, right, being like impulsive, and hyperactivity. Guilty as charged. I'm kidding. And I don't want to make light of it. I'm not making a joke, but I'm saying, have you ever had any of those emotions before? Have you ever had any of those three that I just mentioned? Okay, so while you cannot diagnose off of just those three symptoms, I know it's much more involved than that, but it doesn't have to be. I know it can be, but I'm saying to you that it doesn't have to be. So while you can't just diagnose off of those three symptoms, you can go and Google those. You can Google all the symptoms of ADHD or ADD and read them and find out what they are. If you do in fact do that, I would suggest you do it if you're not familiar. If you are suffering with this, if you're an adult who suffers with this, or you have a child that suffers with this, I respect you. I'm just saying that you probably already know what's going on and you know the challenges that go along with that. Okay, but if there's someone that's kind of not really sure and you want to go Google it, go Google the information, but come from the perspective of, don't read it and say, yep, got that one. Oh, yep, got that one. Oh, yeah. Oh, is that why? Yeah, I got that too. Or, he or she has that too. Think about it from, you're probably going to think about it from that perspective, but also come from the point of view and ask yourself the question, if you have been those, if you have some of those traits and behaviors, and quote unquote, you're not diagnosed with ADD or ADHD or a learning challenge, okay? Just come from it from that perspective, because we all have inattentiveness at times. We all are impulsive at times, and we're hyperactive at times too. I mean, some people, that's just not their personality. Okay. That being said, the treatment of choice. The treatment of choice is usually medication, right? I'm not so up on the names or familiar, but I know that Ritalin is a pretty popular drug of choice. I believe another division of that is a drug called Adderall, I believe is the name. And then I'm sure there's probably a slew of other ones as far as generic brands, etc. And while someone might say to me, yeah, Dr. Frank, you know something? My child was so inattentive, they were so hyperactive, they were so impulsive, we couldn't take it anymore. We didn't know what else to do. We put the child on that type of a medication, and at least we've had some peace. I understand. I understand. All I'm about is the results. So if that's the result that you wanted and it's giving you peace of mind, or it's giving you a sense of peace, and or the child or yourself a sense of peace, I respect that and I understand that. Here's the only thing I want you to understand and to know is that those drugs, Ritalin, Adderall, and drugs that are like them, are considered class 2, or I think what they refer to as Schedule 2 narcotics, Schedule 2 drugs, like cocaine. So I don't know all the things that you do with cocaine. I'm really not up on that. I'm just saying that I think one of the common ways that you take cocaine is you sniff it through your nose, right? And it gives you that high or that upper. So it's an amphetamine-based drug, right? It's an upper type drug. And that kind of messes with your psychology, I would think, to a degree. But again, if the result is that you went on the medication in a crisis moment and in a crisis way, and it helped for the moment, I respect it. I understand that. I'm not poking fun. I'm not making light of it. I'm simply saying I just want you to know that that's what kind of medication that is, that in kind has its own consequences as far as physical dependency and or psychological dependency, never mind the side effects. If you see the side effects, symptoms of taking a medication like that, I just want you to think and to be aware of that, because there is other ways. There are other ways. I know there's outliers. I know there's exceptions to every scenario. I know that some people are so bad, maybe they need medicine to intervene in a crisis situation. I get it, but that's not the majority. We're not talking about the majority there. We're talking about the minority there. All right? Think about this. Do you think that when it comes to attention deficit disorder or attention hyperactivity disorder, or there's a learning challenge of some kind, I don't want to use the names, but like what comes to mind is like a dyslexia, for example, when you see things backwards, okay? There's other ones, don't lock in on that one. I'm not talking about that one specifically, but in general, learning type challenges. Do you think that the brain is involved in those, shall we say, disorders? Just a little bit maybe, right? The brain is involved in that. Now, what if I told you that there is a way naturally with no side effects? What if I told you there was a way naturally with no side effects that there was a way to stimulate the brain, and I'm not talking about with crossword puzzles, but there's a way to stimulate the brain to, for lack of a better way of describing this, to reboot or reset the brain centers that govern the rest of your body? What if I told you there was such a thing? Because there is, okay? Now, do you think that might help someone with their focus and their concentration and their states of relaxation and calm? Okay. Second question. Do you think that when someone is inattentive and they're impulsive and they're hyperactive and maybe their mood goes from highs to lows, they cannot focus, they don't concentrate, things of that nature, do you think that maybe their glandular system is involved? And when I say glandular system, you've heard of your adrenal glands, right? You know, when you get your adrenaline up, your fight or flight mechanisms in your body, the thyroid, your pineal gland, your pituitary gland in your head, right? Your reproductive organs, your pancreas actually functions as a gland for sugar metabolism and metabolizing the carbohydrates that you ingest and take into your body. Do you think any of those structures or those glands have anything to do with maybe someone's mood, focus, concentration levels, memory, and things of that nature? Probably just a little bit, right? Now, what if I told you there was equally a way to stimulate the brain to reboot and reset the brain to govern the entire glandular system of the body so it resets back to normal. And now the proper messages from the brain are flowing through the nervous system and getting to those tissues and structures properly, okay? Because there is. Now, here's what happens when patients like that come to our office, adults and children alike. It goes something like, hey, my neck, my back, my head hurts. And then we get into, is there any other things, any other health challenges that you have? Well, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Now, this could be a person in their 30s or 40s or 50s, and or a child that is less than, let's say, 15 years old, something like that, okay? Yeah, I also have that. I was diagnosed with that. What do you do? Do you take medication? Yes, no, maybe so, etc. And then once they're under our care and we start taking care of them, whether we're specifically knowing of that condition that they have it and or not, and we're taking care of something else, because we're balancing the body, because we're rebooting the brain, because the body is being governed properly now, and now the messages from the brain, proper messages are flowing through the nervous system and getting to those structures and tissues, that's when those people give us feedback like, with children especially, more focus, more concentration, better memory, better grades, better behavior. I've got literal testimonials from parents and or children about letters that came from their teachers saying things like, I don't know what you did with little Johnny, but what a turnaround. Oh my gosh, a complete 180 going in the opposite direction of what was before. What did you do? Are they taking medication, or did you do something natural? Did you do on and on and on? With adults, it's the same thing as far as their energy levels. I mean, we're talking about energy, right? With children and or adults. Their energy levels normalize because hyperactivity would be deemed as too much energy, right? Well, that's a regulation problem. And if you are out of balance and your glands are not working right and the nervous system itself is not working right and the brain is not sending the proper messages to the rest of the tissues, there's a chance that you can be hyperactive and maybe inattentive and maybe just a little impulsive at times, more than the norm or more than what's considered common, right? But once you balance those structures, yes, better focus, concentration, memory, states of relaxation, because a lot of times a person that is diagnosed with that, they feel like as though they cannot relax. And that is under the direction of the glandular system. And the brain is, of course, involved with that, okay? So with adults, even at their jobs, they're doing better and they're having better, productivity, and they have more times in their lives where they're in a state of calm and not going into that anxiety or that hyperactivity mode, okay? It's all about balancing the body. It's all about balancing the brain centers. It's all about getting that person, that individual, the child and or the adult, to perceive themselves properly. Like, what am I feeling right now? Am I sweaty or am I cold? Like, right? Simple things like that, but more from a mental perspective of perceiving themselves for their role awareness and their self-awareness, right? Number one. And then number two, perceiving their environment, whether that's through their 5 outer senses and or even their 5 inner senses, okay? Perceiving themselves and perceiving their environment better and more normally. That's what happens when patients come here and they have those types of disorders, and that's what we've been seeing lately. So that was the thought of the day. There was a woman that prompted this discussion, as well as other patients have been coming in and stating the same things. I just wanted to share that with you, and I want you to think. I want you to think about what I'm saying to you and come from that perspective so that you can look at this with maybe different lenses. Okay, that's the thought of the day. Dr. Frank DiLollo, go out and be yourself. Take a look for us tomorrow. Have a great day.